I'd like to welcome in Sean Shapiro, who's currently calling in from the 1970s.
Yes. Yes.
Oh, guess what? We're live.
We are live.
I
We're live,
know.
aren't we?
We
We're
don't look
live.
at the clock ever, and so we get caught. We got caught by Katya yesterday. Our producer, John Dirty Dancing Anderson, is back. And here we are. This is the DLS Dallas Stars podcast. We have to get you ready for Stars and Kraken. Let's do it right now with the full crew. October 13th, and it's game day as the Dallas Stars host the Seattle Kraken for their second home game and third overall game of the new season. And we have a full crew today for our pregame show and, of course, our postgame show to follow here on the DLS Dallas Stars podcast. Look at us all. It's Sean Shapiro calling from 4 decades ago. It's Sam Nessler calling from the arena. And then, of course, Craig Ludwig and myself trying to hold down at mission control, and our producer, John Anderson, somehow is still upright in spite of all of the things he ingested and lack of sleep. I don't know how he does
back on the post-game show to see how I'm doing.
Something about
if I'm
youth
alive
really helps, doesn't it, Luds?
I consider it practice.
Yeah.
You practice like you play like you practice, so you can tell he's a good practicer.
Well, it looks like Sam's been practicing
good practicer
before the shoot, but he's there now.
Look at the two gigglies that aren't here. I threw up practicer.
And they loved it.
Yeah.
All right, let's get to it.
It was good. It was good.
So, Sean, you weren't here last night. We had a lot of talk about the Stars shutting out the New York Islanders, including a really nice performance by Jakeoettinger, 34 saves in his first shutout of the year, second win. What were your impressions of last night's game?
Yeah, I thought once again, Ottinger's the big one for me, right? Like we talked about on the show, kind of how does he get going to start this year and things, how he's going to kind of prove himself and be in that conversation to not only be the best American goalie, but that best goalie in the world conversation. To me, through 2 games, he builds off a really good start in game 1 for me. And then just to see, like, I think there's times where Ottinger sometimes takes a little bit time in the season to get rolling. And so to me, the shutout, it's easy to get excited about that. I'm just loving the way that he's reading the puck. I really like his save selection early on. I think he's building, and that's my biggest takeaway is Jake Oettinger is playing like the goalie who thinks, hey, I can be that starter for Team USA at 4 Nations. I can be in this top goalie in the world conversation. To me, that's my big takeaway from yesterday with Oettinger.
Sam, you were able to get into the pre-game presser with Pete DeBoer. They didn't skate today. What did you hear from him? And was there any more conversation about last night, or was it all about the brevity of what we're going to see this afternoon or tonight?
Yeah, Pete DeBoer was in his regular spirits of pre-game, late, right before the game type of press conference, which means he didn't feel like answering a lot of questions. So anything about the game last night or about the team overall pretty much was kind of pushed aside. But what he did say is confirmed Dumba. We figured he was getting imaging tomorrow, so he's out tonight. Brendan Smith will come in. He gave me absolutely nothing on who Brendan Smith will play with or how they're going to do the pairings. So we'll have to wait and see on that. And then Maverick Bork, he said, is very close. He skated really hard on his own today, and they're expecting him to be a possibility for Tuesday. One thing he did say about last night, we asked a couple questions about the fourth line, like we talked about in the postgame, and he said that was the first period of hockey our fourth line has played this season, which I found really interesting because we've talked about how that fourth line looked a lot better last night. Clearly, that was something he wanted to get from them, and he got it. So.
And, of course, we can talk more about that later with Sam Steele playing in the middle and why they like that better. But, Luddy, the injury to Matt Dumba last night, 2 periods without one of their top 4D men. How do you feel it affected their game and the usage of the players that were still in the lineup last night?
I don't know if it affected their game last night. I think they were able to, roll with 5 guys in and out of it. I thought they handled it well. When that happens, you ask your forwards to buckle down a little bit more and make sure some of those pucks that are in your zone, they get out of the zone. and you kind of keep it short. As far as tonight goes, they did lean on the big three last night, and so if there's any area, both teams are playing back to back, but I look at the minutes that they played. It's not different for Merrill to play 24, 25 minutes a night, but now you've got all three of those guys with Harley and Miro and Essa that all were in that 25-minute range. And so I think that we'll see how that plays out tonight. It'll be interesting what they do with the pairings. I don't know against the lineup how they want to roll that, who's going to go up there with Miro. It wouldn't surprise me. I know you have your opinion who's going up there, and it wouldn't surprise me.
I should say a guess more than an opinion.
Yeah, I guess we don't even know. I mean, we have no idea. I mean, it could be Nils like you have there. I could see them throwing Harley up there and then maybe put Essa and Bushkin together, and then you still have Nils and Smith on the bottom, although we did see that in preseason, and we talked about it a little bit.
I don't know if it left a really positive impression.
Yeah, so I think for me, that's going to be the thing I'm looking at tonight to see who actually plays up there. The one thing about putting Labushkin up there, I would think that they want Miro. Here are the minutes from last night if you happen to be just listening. Heiskanen was just about 25 and a half. Harley was at 25 and a half, and Essa was right at 25. So typically those aren't big minutes for Miro, but the other guys are in that neighborhood. But those are the three that you typically lean on all the time. So, and I would think that tonight with the Schwartz and the Stevenson Burakovsky line, especially Stevenson. Stevenson can skate. I mean, he can fly through the middle of the line. I'm thinking that's what you want Miro against. So it'll be interesting to see who they put up there on the right side, or if they put Harley up there and say, listen, we'll put you head-to-head against those guys tonight and let the other four sort it out.
All right, let's put up what I am guessing as a possible combination of lines, because we have Sean here. We have to talk about lines. He just insisted line talk right off the top of the program tonight. But more importantly, Sam, you reported it's going to be the same groups. That fourth line of Oscar Beck moved to the left with Steele in the middle, Blackwell on the right. Obviously, the other three lines are staying as they are, but this is just a guess from a defensive side, and I want all of your opinions. So we'll start with Sean and go to Sam and then Buddy. Do you like the idea of them trying to somehow keep the lefty-righty intact, or do you want to see them go to something we saw more last year with Miro and Harley, or something else entirely?
I think this is the perfect game, honestly, to what you got out there right now with Miro and Nils on the top pair. I think if you're ever going to try it, tonight's the perfect game to try it. You know what? It's game 3 of the season. You're trying to figure things out. You talk all the time about next man up, seizing an opportunity. For me, this is one of those where, from a coaching staff perspective, you tell Nils, you say to Nils, hey, this is your chance. Go prove you should be in that spot again. That's what I would want to see tonight. I think this is one of those, if you're not going to try it in game 3 of 82, you're never going to try it. So try it tonight. That's how I look at that kind of lefty-righty, giving Nils that opportunity, next man up. To me, it's more of a coaching move than anything here for me.
Sam, what do you think?
Yeah, I agree with Sean 100%. I think one thing that Pete did say was, when he was asked about what to expect tonight, was, I have no idea. He's got two teams that are tired, playing on back-to-back. Seattle had to rally a bunch of times last night. I don't know if you guys saw that game. They came back from 2-0, 3-2, and 4-3 to win in a shootout. Super impressive comeback. So they're going to be gassed, like the Stars would probably be, from having to hold on to that lead last night. So you don't really know what to expect. So I agree with Sean. Why not try it? If it doesn't work in 15, 20 minutes, you can always switch it up. I don't think that you need to pigeonhole yourself and throw Harley back up there and just go back to what you know. I think, why not give it a shot?
I think, and I don't disagree with you guys at all. I think that you can start that way, start any way you want, but it could be situational. I mean, time and score and defensive zone faceoffs. You may see Harley come out there, Miro's out there, and then puck gets out of the zone. You change, Nils gets on. I know it doesn't send the message that, you can't play in here. I think it's just how the game unfolds, but I think he's got different options there. And I'm more curious about how Brendan Smith's going to play. I hope he has a good game tonight, and I hope we see him play that physical kind of style that he brings and plays well in his own zone, because that's what he's here for. And this is a spot, when guys get hurt, they brought him in to be that 6-7 that can come in and play against teams and make it a little bit more uncomfortable for people to play in front of the net.
Sean, he actually, maybe I should ask Sam, because he played for the Devils last year, but he started his career with the Red Wings, Brendan Smith, big chunk of the middle of his career with the New York Rangers, briefly with the Hurricanes, but the last 2 years with the Devils. So let's go to Sam. Sam's still here. He's got to leave in a few minutes anyway. What did you see from Brendan Smith last year that may be different from just the quick snapshot we saw in preseason?
Yeah, it's not necessarily that it's different. It's just that he's going to be your utility guy, right? He was put in. We've talked about him being able to play forward. He was literally the guy that if the Devils had an injury, they were like, all right, put Brendan Smith in on the third line wing or put Brendan Smith in on the third pairing. He played sometimes with their top guys, especially with the injuries last year with Dougie Hamilton out for a large part of that season. So I think it's not necessarily different from what we've seen. It's just that I expect him to come in and I expect him to play solid. I don't know how many minutes he's going to play. Going with that Nils thing, I don't see Nils playing 27 minutes tonight anyway, even if he's paired with Hasty to start. But I think that Smith's just going to come in. He's a solid guy. He's physical. He may not have impressed us a ton in that St. Louis preseason game, but I expect him to come in and I expect him to play some solid night on the bottom pairing.
Sean, what's your take of Brendan Smith and where he can step in with an injury like Dumba's?
I mean, I think Sam kind of nailed it a little bit, where he'll just be a solid, steady guy when he comes into the lineup, and he's going to be very in recent history. He's going to be very Joel Hanley-esque. We use that's what Joel Hanley was, and one of the Stars things they missed last year after the deadline when Joel Hanley had to get waived to open up roster space and was claimed by Calgary was a guy who could step in and be ready like that. That's why they had to go to Petrovic in the playoffs. So that's what Brendan Smith is to me. He's a step in, solid. There's not going to be anything flashy about his game. There'll be a little bit of physicality, but the point is to make it so at the end, when we have this post-game show afterwards, you have to remind us Brendan Smith played. If you have to remind us Brendan Smith played this game, he will have done his job tonight.
Yeah, agreed. And he did. He is one of few, just one specifically for Luds. He told me and Owen that he wants to potentially retire in New Jersey. So face that, Luds.
Meaning retire and live in New Jersey, not retire
living in New
with
Jersey.
the Devils.
No, just living in New Jersey and right around the corner from where I live. So Luds, why don't you just get out of here, eh?
See you, Sam. Nice talking to you. Yeah, and Sean's exactly right. I mean, it was back in my day when it was French, right? And you read the paper, and the Journal was the Bible in Montreal. They'd always say, and I couldn't read nothing at the time. And well, not that I can now, so you guys don't have to throw that in there. I know you're both chomping at the bit. But so I just scan it. And if my name wasn't there, they'd say, that's perfect. That's what you want. Your name's not there. We're not talking about you. You're just doing the right thing. So the other bonus, I guess, for coaches tonight is that it's at home. You got the last change. You can put people out there when you want if you notice a certain line against a certain group of guys.
It is concerning that they said, Sam, imaging for Dumba tomorrow, Monday, meaning maybe they don't have availability on a Sunday. That's not that surprising, but the fact that they have to get to that means it's more serious than just, oh, well, he's sore a day or two, you should be okay. I am concerned when I hear something like that.
Can I throw a quick counterpoint to that?
Go ahead,
John. Just quick thing.
Let's get it together.
You talk about Owen saying, like, I don't know about them. If the imaging was so bad that they needed to get something, they would have rushed it in today. I'm going to throw a quick counterpoint on that, where I look at it the flip side, where yes, they were probably going to have to image either way. So if it was something that was so bad that was going to be long term, they wouldn't be waiting for imaging till Monday. So for me, I use kind of that, like, these are professional athletes. It's not like you or I going to the doctor. They could got the imaging done today.
Anything to add, Sam?
No, I agree. I think a good way to say is we have no idea, which is very common in media.
Well, the interesting thing is that we just spent a whole bunch of time in preseason talking about how deep they were at defense. Now we're really going to see a test. Now, the early part of the year, they don't have any really long trips. They're at home right now. They have another home game on Tuesday. They have short trips to the Eastern Conference. I can't imagine that they're going to go on the road without cover. Yeah. And if Dumba's out for more than just, say, today, which it sounds like it's possible, then who do they go get? That's not a today problem. That's something for us to look at later in this week. But just something to put in the back of your mind is, the Texas Stars just played back-to-back games Friday, Saturday, and they're season openers. And so if they did have anybody available today, they would have played games in two consecutive. This would be their third and three. So that's a big ask. But I'm sure the brass that went down there on Friday and watched them, we're kind of keeping an eye on who was playing well early on, and we'll see how that goes. All right, one question more for Sam, and then we will let him go so he can go watch the warm-up and let us know that we're all completely wrong about our prognostications on the blue line. Was this conversation between Tyler Seguin, his post-game comments, and Pete DeBoer's post-game comments had Luddy and I talking quite a bit before the show tonight about who's saying what and how they're diagnosing the last couple of games.
Yeah, it's kind of funny. It's like some guys want to just push it off and say, like Pete today was saying, it's 3 games in. It's the 3rd game. We got teams we don't know. We've seen games that are 8-5. We've seen games that are 1-0. The NHL right now is kind of just crazy, and I think that's kind of how the coaching staff is wanting to approach it. Whereas players seem to be taking it a little more personally, and hey, we had some sloppy mistakes. We had with this and that. And really trying to focus, which I think is common. I think the coaches want to not overwhelm the players, but these are professional athletes, as Sean just said. They want to be better, and they understand that they're not clean right now. Getting 8 posts in 2 games and having to make Jake Oettinger make 35 saves last night, that's not perfect hockey, and they're not expecting to play perfect hockey, but I think the players are definitely taking it upon themselves to play better tonight.
I kind of look at it. What caught my ear was when I heard Tyler do his little talk, and he goes, "Yeah, we got things to work on. We got to be a lot better." And then Pete comes out and says, "I liked our game tonight. It was a good game." And but the thing for me is that I think that there's conversations that we don't hear about, and when you have a coach that comes out and says the good things, the player thinks, you know what, he's got our back. He's not calling us out. Now, there's no reason to call him out right now. It's game 3 coming up tonight. So, and Pete understands that. And so I think he's looking at it in little bits and pieces saying, you know what, yeah, he's not going to say we didn't play great, but we're getting better every night. We're getting better every day, and which is what they want to do. And like I said, as a player, when coaches come out sometimes and they call you out early on, it's like you kind of feel, man, he doesn't have our back. And so I think this scenario here, but yeah, and the other thing is, if I'm Pete and I hear Tyler's comments, it's like, good. The message is being sent within the room. It's my leaders that are saying this. I don't have to talk as much. Now they know exactly whenever coaches hear players start preaching to the players what they're trying to preach, you just kind of stand back and go, okay, they've got it now. We're heading in the right direction.
Sam, we'll let you go. Thanks. Give us an update.
One thing, Owen.
Yeah, I was going to say one thing.
He's always got one more.
Got to have the last word. Go ahead.
Well, I just thought of it when Lutz was talking. I could be looking too far into this, but you also keep in mind a big topic for coming into the season was how hard it's been to lose 2 straight conference finals in Game 7 or Game 6. So this team is coming off of some heartbreaking losses, and the whole focus has been on focus on the runs, focus on one game at a time. So it really doesn't surprise me that much that the coaching staff is saying we're 2-0, we're not perfect, let's just get better, versus picking apart little parts of the game and saying how we were terrible in the first period, we were bad at the start. I think they're just looking at it as, hey, we're 2-0, let's get better tonight. Now I will leave.
All right, Sam, thanks very much. Text us an update about the line combos. We'll read it a little bit later.
See you, boys.
All right, guys. Now that Sam is out of there, let's get up the Seattle Kraken lineup and talk about a change that happened about 20 minutes ago, maybe a half hour ago, when Dan Bilesma met with the media before tonight's game. These are wrong. Vince Dunn will not play tonight. Vince Dunn is out day-to-day with an upper body injury. So, unlike the Stars that didn't show their hands, Riker Evans is going to move up and play with Adam Larson, and Josh Mahura replaces Evans' spot with Will Borgen on the 3rd pairing. Luddy,
advantage Dallas.
What does that do with Vince Dunn out of their lineup? That's a big loss.
He's steady Eddie. He gets up and he adds to the offense. And Owen and I were talking earlier. Sean and I had said this was a guy that when he was in St. Louis and I was talking to Army Doug Armstrong, the general manager, about it, really loved Vince Dunn and loved him and thought he was going to be there. And for whatever reason, they had to move him along. I just think he's a top 2, top 3 defenseman. And anytime you have that, especially when Larson last night played, the minutes that he played were about 25 minutes last night too. So now all of a sudden I'm expecting Larson to probably get up in those minutes again tonight.
It's I love Dunn as a player too. Like Luds, I agree with you completely. He's a guy who, when you look at like picking guys from teams, he's someone who was always like, I would be really interested if he was available to come to my team. The other thing that this really makes for an interesting, because it is an even footing, right? Both teams are back-to-back. Both teams have a new defenseman entering both have someone new entering the lineup. They've got guys who played a lot of minutes last night. And Luds, I'm curious from your perspective, this as a player. To me, sometimes we hear about those tired second games, those back-to-back games, those ones that are hard on the body. Sometimes mentally, if you just get your headspace right, they can be a little bit simpler. And I kind of was curious to pick your brain on that, Luds, real quick, just like from a player perspective. When you come into this as a defenseman and know, hey, we did this last night, we played 25 minutes, we're gonna have to play again. Does like how does that work from a player perspective? Because I've always heard players talk about how that's how they cope with these type of games sometimes.
I think it's very similar to some of the buildings that you go into, and especially on the road, and you're like, we got to weather the storm for the first 5 minutes of the game. 5-10 minutes, we get ourselves into it. And I think that, if it's in your head a lot of times that you're tired, you're going to be tired. You get out there and what'll happen is they're going to try to roll their defensemen, especially both teams will, and they're going to try to roll the defensemen so everybody gets into it. Your shifts are a little bit shorter in the beginning, and then you actually start to feel better as the game goes along. And then all of a sudden, you may get down to the last 10 minutes of a game, and if it's a close game, you might start to feel it at that point. But for the most part, and again, this is game 3. It's not like we're in game 40 or 50 and, they've been wear and tear on these guys. So I think once you get through the first 5 to 10 minutes of the game, you start feeling better.
All right, let's show the lineup again, because the big acquisitions for Seattle in the offseason were the signings of Chandler Stevenson from Vegas and Brandon Montour from the Stanley Cup champion Florida Panthers. And when you look at their group, especially down the middle, Stevenson makes them a lot deeper because it pushes down Matty Beniers. And, of course, Shane Wright's been mostly in the AHL since his big high-profile draft selection, and then sort of, I don't know if you want to call it mismanagement of his development or not, but it just didn't work the exact way that you expected it to be. But, Sean, when you look at these lines and the D pairings, ignoring the fact that Vince Dunn isn't playing, it feels like these are really interesting and important adds to this Kraken lineup.
One of the reasons Seattle has to get offense from all 4 lines is because of this lineup in front of me right now. That's just the reality of it, where it's like there's no like you look through that team and if you were to say, hey, do they have a number 1 center? Do they have the guy who, when you talk about teams winning Stanley Cups, they always check those boxes: a number 1 center, an elite defenseman, a number 1 goalie. You look at Seattle and I look through those lines and they got a lot of guys who, hey, if this was my number 2 behind a number 1, I'd be thrilled. And they just lack that guy down the middle. They lack that one guy. Maybe Matty Beniers can be that person. I don't know. We'll see where he goes in his career. But that's kind of one of the things where I look at when you look at a Dallas versus Seattle side by side. I go right down the middle. This is where Dallas to me has a big advantage, because Dallas has actual number 1 centers. And you know what? They got 3 guys who probably could be number 1 centers if they were on that Seattle team. So that's how I look at this from a Dallas advantage perspective. And it's why the Stars are a better team. It's why the Stars are going to be a team that we expect to be going deep in the Western Conference Finals and in the Western Conference playoffs, and why Seattle is kind of, are they going to be a playoff team or not? That's it. To me, that's a huge difference between those 2 teams when you talk about building futures.
We're going to talk about goaltenders in just a second, but we have an update from Sam, as it looks like they're not going with the lefty-righty pairs for the Stars D group. It's going to be Harley Heiskanen, according to Sam in the warm-up, Lindell and Lundqvist, and Smith and Lyubushkin. So I didn't have – I thought there was a good chance that Harley and Heiskanen were going to play together, but I'm surprised that they go Lindell and Lundqvist, although that is a duo we saw in preseason. So you get 3 new pairs for this game. Thoughts?
Didn't I say that?
Yeah.
Okay.
But you got it.
No, I just.
You
I
also
just
agreed with Sean saying, if not now,
but
when?
here's what you're going to do: is you're going to lean on your top 4 tonight. That's what's going to happen. I just
Is Lundqvist part of the top 4 since he's playing with Lindell?
or are you
I
don't know how long it's going to last. I don't know how long it's going to last.
Yeah.
I think, again, we talked about it right in the beginning. This is how they're going to start. It doesn't mean that it's going to be like this, at the end of the first period or even before that. So the game will dictate how they're going to use the pairs tonight, I think. And I think it's kind of a no-brainer. They're going back to the top pair that they had last year, especially against some of the speed that they'll have out there tonight in that top line.
Sean, you agree?
I agree. I like. I kind of mentioned earlier, I would have liked to see Lundqvist start with Miro, but it's also, these are just lines and warmups. I mean, just pairings and warmups. So let's have a more in-depth conversation about that later if it impacts everything.
All right, let's go to the goaltenders. First, it'll be Casey DeSmith tonight for the Stars, making his Dallas debut. And Sean pulled his in-stat numbers about the goaltending save percentages. Sean, what do you make of this graphic and what Casey DeSmith brings to the Dallas Stars?
Yeah, I think DeSmith's a solid backup. His job is going to be this season to go and play 25 to 30 games, so Ottinger can be fresh for the playoffs. And he he's a solid goalie who does a really good job sealing the ice, and I think one of the things he does well is he does seem to battle, and that's something I think that you need with a backup goalie, especially when these are the assignments they're going to get. The team's tired, so I like the DeSmith signing. I like what they're doing, and I think tonight is a good example. It's a good first game for him because this is what his role is going to be all year. The Stars aren't going to be their freshest. They're not going to be this. His job is going to be he's going to have to battle a little bit early on. I know Seattle's tired too, but just the nature of this, I think it's a really good setting for him and a good standard to kind of show who he is with kind of this setup here.
He's definitely strong when you hit him right in the middle of the chest. He's 131 for
Yes,
131.
yes.
100%.
That
Yes.
makes me feel better.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's
Hey, when we
that's
put these up during the
big.
preseason, Sean, I'm pretty sure Scott Wedgwood had 1 goal allowed shot straight at his
He
chest.
did.
So
He did. There was Scott Wedgwood allowed 1 through. I did speak to Scott Wedgwood the other day, by the way. He was in the
Hey,
middle of
Sean,
getting his.
can you talk a little bit about the mindset? You know, and again, this is life as a backup. You know, DeSmith comes in, it's game 3, the back-to-back thing, and, you know, tired players and mindset for a goaltender going into that role. They just kind of take it as, hey, this is my job and I know where I'm at.
Yeah, I think there is one of the biggest kind of like BS things you'll hear from a goalie is like sometimes people will say like, "Oh, I prepare the same whether I'm playing or not that night," and that's a complete load of BS. Than everything. I actually spoke to Cam Talbot the other day about this, who is another goalie the Stars had kind of considered actually and put an offer to for signing in this role. And he was telling me how it's, you know what, you go into the backup job and you know when you're coming in, that's your night, right? Like, and this is your, as a goalie, you can't go out there and throw a hit. You can't do this, but this is effectively everything is building. You are the quote unquote weak point. You are the center of attention for the other team. They say, oh, it's not Jakeoettinger playing. Those are the things where you become the center of attention. And even if you're a backup goalie, it's what you've wanted your entire life. You've wanted to be. There's only 32 crease. There's only 32 NHL jobs. There's only 32 whatever analogy you want to use. It is an opportunity, and it can crack guys. That's why it cracks people, right? Because it's people and so for DeSmith's perspective, when you come in, no one is expecting you to be Jake Ottinger, but if you are even close to it, you've done your job. I realize that's not a great poetic answer, and I'm well aware of that. But it is just truly the mental approach of how do you come in and be the person that solidifies things for a team that just went through a battle last night that you had to watch.
How do you want to get into the game as a goaltender backup? Do you want to get in with 5-6 shots in the first couple of minutes, or do you like it just getting one here and one there?
I personally, and just kind of talking to guys, I think one of the best ways to get into games if you can get those 4 to 5 shots in the first 5 minutes. I know sometimes a coach would be like, "Oh, look, we're getting outshot earlier," but like if you're a goalie, if you can start feeling the puck, if you can have a little bit of the structure in front of you, if you can make that first easy glove save, that first time where it's a guy coming down the wing and taking a shot, and you can maybe spike a puck with puck along the ice and spike the rebound up over the glass. Those little fundamental things that you want to be part of your game, if you can make those save selections in the first 5 to 6 minutes, that to me is the building blocks for a great game for a goalie, because all of a sudden it becomes part of everything. The hardest games for a goalie to get into, in my view, and talking to guys who have played this position at the highest level, is first 10 minutes, you're just watching the other end of the ice. And then they come down, it's against the grain. You haven't made a clean save yet, and it's a grade A chance right away. So as a goalie, if you can get one of those, like, I know coaches say, oh, we want to control the shots. I think, honestly, if you could basically, as a coach, if your goalie's facing 4 to 5, not grade A's, but clean chances where they get a nice tracking, they can get their head going on the swivel the right way, then you're building towards a good start.
All right, let's show Philip Grubauer here, the other part of Sean's crack analysis. And Sean, you had a lot to say about that 75 and 38% over the glove.
Yeah. Philip Grubauer is actually astonishingly bad on the glove side for an NHL goalie. I was very curious. So, like you saw DeSmith earlier, I think he was like at 83% on shots to the glove side and everything. But the Grubauer thank you. Grubauer is and I talked to a goalie coach about him earlier today after polling this number, and I was just curious, like, it is for a guy to have as long of a career as he had and get the role and the money he's made to have that big of a hole on the glove side is fascinating, because NHL goalies are not supposed to be beat that clean, that easily. I mean, he's getting beat a fourth of the time on the glove side. It's even worse if you look at if you can elevate over the shoulder, it gets even worse. And you know what? This chart I pulled, Jeff Reese goes and pulls all of the charts like this for goalies for the Stars shooters. I guarantee you they took a big red highlighter and circled that glove right there. You come down on the side, that's where you're looking. Like that is a hole in this guy's game, and it's a unique one because most goalies, honestly, in the NHL, it's typically flipped. You see a guy really strong on the blocker side, like Grubauer is, you typically don't see the glove be that bad.
Well, speaking of holes, have you seen Grubauer okay? Because I see it's 183 or 193 to 195. Two of them went right through the center of his chest.
You think he's got a couple wounds?
I don't know. I just want to make sure he's okay.
Two of them.
Is that one where it's shot in the middle center mass, but he moved out of the way?
I don't know.
Maybe just got scared and didn't want to.
The way that would register, because I've looked those up before, so I didn't look up the Grubauer one. Typically, that's one where it comes through and the goalie makes like one of these saves. And for the audio platform, what I'm talking about is basically just kind of like crunching down on the puck, and then you failed to hold it, and it basically kind of trickles through the arm. That's kind of what those would kind of look like on one, which is clearly not something you want to be doing as an NHL goaltender.
So as we get ready for this one, the Kraken rallied from 3 times trailing yesterday in Minnesota, got to overtime, won in a shootout. The Stars are 2-0 with a shutout win over the New York Islanders last night. Any final thoughts before we get this one underway and get ready for our post-game afterwards?
Just one guy to look for, and I made a mistake. It wasn't Larson. I remember it wasn't Larson that had the 25, 26 minutes with Montour. I remember when you mentioned his name. You got to keep an eye on him. He's going to be up the ice all night. He's very dangerous defenseman, especially on the power play. Makes a lot of things happen offensively. But no, I'm looking for the guys to go through, finish this game off and finish this little stretch off the right way. I just think that they've got things rolling right now. And like Pete said, he's happy with the progress. And I think you just keep looking for a little bit more progress.
John?
Yeah, I mean, good note on Montour. I love his game. By the way, he's someone to watch if you just want to watch a defenseman who knows to play the game. I'm really interested tonight to see kind of like I'm looking forward to seeing Logan Stankoven tonight. Honestly, I'm interested to watch him play every night because we talk all about these Calder Trophy races and everything like that. But to me, this is one of those games where you're the young guy, you're coming into the league, you're starting to get your name circled on the board by the other team. You're playing your third. Playing a back-to-back, you got the young legs, you got the young energy. Go be a bit of that spark plug. Like to me, he's a guy who I'm really interested to watch in these scenarios as we go early in the season. I know what a Wyatt Johnston will do in this situation. I know what some of the other more veteran players will do. I'm interested to see kind of Logan Stankoven continuing to build and be like, let's build that NHL consistency so you can really put some meat to that Calder Trophy conversation we all want to talk about.
And lastly for me, Marchment, Duchesne, Seguin. Keep an eye on them. They have been really good early, and I think they'll continue to be. That's it for now. We will be back about 10 minutes or so after the game ends with our full post-game show. Sean will be with us. Luddy and I will be here. Sam will chime in after the press scrums are done. For our producer, John Anderson, I'm Owen Newkirk. Thanks so much for joining us. Enjoy the game tonight.
We all silly like the mayor.